And welcome everybody, it's Dan. Hope you're well today. So in today's podcast show, we're going to talk about property and how to get started or how to start a property portfolio on a small budget. Now, this is something I can actually talk about because I actually did it 26 years ago. I was there 3,000 years ago, to quote Lord of the Rings. So 26 years ago, I was desperate to get into property, and I was so desperate, it took me 6 years, in fact, to buy my first house. And the reason it took my first house is because literally everybody said, do not get into property, it'll all go wrong. And here we are 26 years later, made a lot of money, made a lot of cash flow, got me through some really difficult times in my life as well, which is, you know, what can you say? If I'd have had a job, I would have gone bankrupt because I wouldn't have been able to function during the job. And while I had the property, the money kept coming in. Sure, it had a few problems because I wasn't checking the money was coming in. I didn't really care at that point. But it got me through such a tough time. And this money, this continual income coming in from this property portfolio that I'd created, it's just life-changing. And if we can get that for you, I think we're on to a good start. So let's talk about that today, if that's okay. So the first way to start a property portfolio on a small budget is through property sourcing. And I've been sourcing properties for the last 26 years, pretty much since I started. And probably not quite 26 years, probably 22 years. For the first 4 years, we had the money coming in from a job. And then after, from age 26, February, is when I bought my first house, up to about June, on my 30th birthday, just coming up to my 30th birthday, that's when I actually left the job and I went into property full time. That's when I started sourcing properties. And what property sourcing allows you to do is find a selection of different types of properties. And this is really important. It's not necessarily properties that are below market value that you can source. You can find things that are on Rightmove. I know because I've done it. You can find a 4-bed house, you can add an extra bedroom, you can convert that to a HMO, as long as it's not in Article 4 area, of course, which doesn't allow HMOs. But you can do all of that. And you can package that deal up and you can sell it. And how much can you sell it for? Well, you can sell it for 500 quid or £2,000 or £4,000. We had a client of ours a month or two ago now, but he sourced £1 million property portfolio. Now think about that. If he got 1% of that, that's 10 grand. 1% is 10 grand. Like, how much money do you think you could make sourcing property? And we always say, you know, get some easy money first, get some experience, but you can absolutely make money sourcing property. And we know this because we've sold thousands of copies of our property sourcing training, and we get emails from people who've done the training, completed the training, and got their first deal. So it's not buying a portfolio, you're sourcing properties for other people to buy. And let's just say you're making, let's say, 2.5 grand each for every deal that you source. How many of those do you need to get to a deposit? It just depends. If 10% is the deposit and you're buying a 100 grand house, there's £10,000 that you need. If you're making 2.5 grand per property deal that you've sourced, you need to source 4 deals. Now the question becomes, can you source 4 deals a year? Yes, of course you can. One every 3 months? Absolutely. And then how long can you do that for? Let's just say you're going to do it for the next 10 years. Then you're sourcing properties for the next 10 years. You're buying one property a year because you're 10% deposit for the next 10 years. That's 10 properties. Is that enough to retire? Depending on how well you've bought and what the rents are and all of this, you know, interest rates in 10 years' time and all of that good stuff. But absolutely, it's a really great way of getting started in property. And this is also the best bit. When you're sourcing these deals, you can find the best deals and you can keep those deals for yourself. You don't have to sell every deal that you come across. You can find something that just really suits. So, for example, one of the deals that we sourced, it was a 3-bed semi and it had a flat above and a flat below. And we sourced that. We got a discount on it. It was already tenanted, needed a little bit of kind of, you know, bringing up to speed and so on. And we actually decided to keep that one. We bought it for 100. It's literally about to go on the market for like 190 grand because we're reducing the size of our portfolio. And that property has always made me money for the last, I don't know how long we've had it, 20 years, 16 years. I don't know how long we've had it. So you don't have to sell every deal. Sometimes you're going to come across a deal and you're like, you know what? I'm going to keep that deal myself. And then the other thing that you can do is you can do what we call rent to rent. And rent to rent is basically where you come across a landlord, they may be tired, they may be fed up, they maybe live overseas. I'm all three of those things, by the way. I'm a landlord, I'm tired, I'm fed up, I live overseas. One of the reasons why we're selling up, in fact. And so you could rent that property from me, and then you could sublet that property with my permission. You have to have the owner's permission. We've seen people getting access to a deal, and we've spoken to landlords, and we go, oh yeah, I rented it out, and next thing I know, they're renting it out on a per room basis without my permission. Breach of HMO rules, bit of a nightmare actually. So you have to have the owner's permission, but that's a really good way of doing it. The property sourcing training, by the way, has some ideas about how to find some of those rent-to-rent deals, which you'll find really interesting. But rent-to-rent, I like the idea of rent-to-rent. I think it's a great stepping stone to get you into the routine of finding deals and negotiating and all of that thing. I'll tell you what I don't like. I don't like being on the other end. I don't like being a landlord on open rent, getting email after email after email. Oh, we're a professional sourcing company. You know, I get so many. I get sick of them, and they try and hide it, and they come up with all these different ways of saying the same thing, and it's so obvious what they're doing, and they don't tell us that they're rent to renting or anything like that, and it's just not right. So do it the right way if you're going to do it, and you can do it. If someone's been left a property and they don't know what to do with it and they don't want to sell it, you could take over that property for them, and you can pay them a fair rent, and then you could, like on a 4-bed house, you could split the rooms. You've got to make sure Article 4, which doesn't allow HMOs, you need to make sure all the rules and regulations are all followed and so on. But that's a really good way of making some extra cash. So, if you rent a place for £1,000 and it's 4 bedrooms and you can get £450 per room, there's £800. Obviously you've got utilities and TV license and what's it called, Wi-Fi, I couldn't remember the name. That might be another £400, but you make £400 a month off that. Maybe you could turn it into a 5th bedroom with a HMO license, in which case you make £800 a month. You've got some really good opportunities there with rent to rent. But let me tell you what I did. When I got started all those years ago, I actually bought my first house. In those days, there were 5% deposits. And we didn't live in black and white. I'm not that old. But we got 5% deposits, and 10% deposit wasn't so much more. I know it's twice, but we were able to do it because we won a good job, right? So we bought a house and we moved into the lounge. So I converted the lounge and then I HMO'd the rest of the house. And basically what I did was was it 3 mates? It's a 3-bed house and it had a lounge. So we turned the lounge into a 4th bedroom, and the other 3 bedrooms I rented out to my mates. My mates moved in. It was in Hyde Park in Leeds. There were always student parties going on. We had such a blast for 3 years living in that house, going to random parties that we just weren't even invited to. We just gate crashed film student parties. It was great. Such a wonderful time. Those 3 mates paid for my mortgage. They paid for the gas, water and electricity. They paid for my beer. They paid for my fuel because the rent was coming in. It was a really good way of me paying down some of that property, which was really good. And so we HMO'd the house that we owned. And the other thing that you can do if you're living in a house is you might have a spare room, so you might be able to get 1 lodger or 2 lodgers. And obviously you need to check the tax rules because there's some tax benefits in doing that as well. I can't remember what the latest is. It used to be like $62.50 a week. It used to be tax-free, I think. Something like that. I can't remember what that is, and it's changed since last time I looked anyway. But check into it. So if you've got a house, or even a flat, a 2-bed flat, can you rent the other room out? Can you do something with that? Can you Airbnb the other room out? You make more money on an Airbnb than you would with moving somebody in, but there's more work to do with Airbnb than just moving someone in where you're getting regular income. But also, you need your privacy and all of that kind of thing has to be worked out. You might be sharing a bathroom, maybe you've got an ensuite and so on. So you have to work out and work through all of those different things. And then just finally on this one is you could actually do it the other way around, where you could move into your mate's 2-bed flat. So you're moving into the spare bedroom, and the house that hopefully you actually own, you've got to start somewhere, right? So the house that you actually own, you could then rent that out. Might be a 4-bed, might be a 3-bed, might be a 2-bed, but maybe you can get tenants in that share that particular one, that generates cash flow. You know, if you're moving into your mate's house or your mum's back to your mum's and into a caravan in the back garden. I'm at a certain age now, by the way, where moving into a caravan, maybe not a caravan, but a motorhome sounds bliss. I don't need a lot of space. I just need, I need a big TV, I need an internet connection, an Xbox and a laptop. I'm happy, I think that's a sign of age, though. But you could move in, and how much money would you get if you rented out your whole house or rented it out on a per room basis or Airbnb'd the whole thing? Look, at some point you're going to have to make sacrifices to get going. And people say, oh, but I don't want to move in with my mate. I don't want strangers coming in. It's like, that's fine. That's your choice. But at some point you've got to make sacrifices somewhere. And the question is, where are those sacrifices actually going to be? You can't always have it the way that you want to have it without making some of those sacrifices. People in London complain about house prices being too high. You can live outside of London. Oh, I can't live up north, there's no jobs. Yeah, because nobody up north has a job. Nobody in Bristol has a job or anything like that. They're the sacrifices. I want to live in Buckingham Palace, but I can't. I don't really want to live in Buckingham Palace. Couldn't imagine anything worse. Andrew knocking on your door every night. Oh, that's controversial, isn't it? But these are the sacrifices, maybe not Andrew, but these are the sacrifices that you will have to make at some point. And the question is, what are you prepared to give up in order for you to have a certain level of success? And if you're not prepared to give up anything, I would question whether you're aligned for the best success possible, because I think you're probably not. You are going to have to sacrifice something when you're first getting started trying to build a portfolio. For me, it was working 60, 70 hours a week. Firstly, on 2 jobs, one 40 hours and another on 20 hours. One of them was Symphony Kitchens, and the other one was working part-time in William Hill in Leeds on a call, in the call centre. Then we got the job at Dell. That was still 60-hour weeks, pulling your hair out because you're so stressed out, aged. What was that? Gosh, I was only 29. I was just a baby when I got that job. I shouldn't have been given that job, really, looking back. But there I was, very, very stressful, earned a lot of money, 100 grand a year, and I sacrificed my sanity, shall we say, for that job. Very challenging position to do, especially with just unrealistic goals and targets and the pressure that put on you to perform and all this stuff, you don't get paid 100 grand a year for just sitting there. So it was challenging. And so it's a very, very good question. Out of all 4 of these, which one are you prepared to do? And if the answer is none of them, I think you need to look at what else are you prepared to give up. And it might be that, okay, you might work 60-hour weeks and earn 100 grand, in which case that's the thing that you need to do, but then it kind of offsets the small budget thing that we mentioned right up here somewhere, wherever it is, right there, look at that, right there. So you have to give up something, and the question, as always, turns into what are you prepared to give up to find success along the way. All right, I hope that was useful. We'll catch up with you in the next one. If you want a link to the property sourcing training, of course, it is down below. Go and take a look at that. Other than that, we'll speak to you next time. Have a good day. Take care.